The first lesson of economics is scarcity. There is never enough of anything to fully satisfy all those who want it. The first lesson of politics is to disregard the first lesson of economics. Thomas Sowell, 1993. Welcome to the revolution. Welcome to We Need a Revolution. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and my co-host alongside me over there is John Banks. John, welcome. How are you, buddy?
I am doing amazing. I hired an assistant today. It's called Gemini, and it is so helpful.
I told you.
Yeah, so helpful. How are you doing?
I'm good. I've been using Gemini for a while, and I've moved over from ChatGPT, but they're just the tool. The how good it is now as a tool is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is crazy. Like even in my emails, I'll be writing emails for work, and I'm a terrible speller. I think we've had this conversation before.
I've known you for a long time, and anyone who has ever watched History Defeats Itself, yes, terrible.
And grammar's not my thing either. So It's like, it's really interesting. I love, like, as I'm typing out an email for work, it will tell me like, yeah, you could do this instead, or how about this, or, it's like, thanks, Gemini.
Yeah, I know. I know. And that's what's so great about it. And that's, I think, like, it's actually been in the news a lot lately, AI, as it always is, but.
Oh, it has? I didn't.
Yeah. But even like just as of today and yesterday, because it's been spooking some investors because of the job loss part is kind of spooking some people. So it's been affecting the account or affecting the stock market.
Yeah. Well, and it's I think there's been, I think I'm right about this, about 30,000 people laid off this year directly because of AI.
Really?
So yeah. I got into a whole conversation with Court last week about this. I was like, I think my job is safe for another 10 years. And she's like, why do you think that? I'm like, because people like me. So
people are going to stop liking you in 10 years. Is it?
I think in 10 years, it'll be so amazing. And you won't be able to tell, right? Like now you can still tell for a while, because I'm in sales, but eventually you won't be able to tell.
I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I think you might be safe in that role, in a sales role. I think at least maybe. To some degree. I think maybe some super entry level sales jobs you could lose, but people are going to want to have a relationship. I think so.
I hope so. That's my hope. But also, is it going to matter in 2 years when the robots kill us? That's probably.
That is a different conversation.
Yeah.
That's the Terminator solution.
That's why I am nice to all of them. I'm nice to Siri. I'm nice to Alexa. I'm very complimentary of Gemini. I type things, very nice things to it. Them, her. I don't know if that has personhood yet, but
it's up to you. You can put whatever gender, sexual orientation, anything you want on it, John. That's perfectly okay.
It's cis 0 and 1. So
did you before we get to our guest, I'm curious if you watched any of the State of the Union.
I did not. I read some highlights, but I decided not to watch it, and not because I knew it was going to be he wasn't going to say nice things, and the Democrats weren't going to be nobody was going to be nice. It wasn't going to be it has lost so much of its civility. So I was just like, And that's been going on for a while. And
it's always been theater, but it seems like it's really aggressive theater now.
Yeah. It's guerrilla theater now.
It's guerrilla theater.
Yeah.
It's like those weird plays someone took you to back in the day in some weird part of the city where you're like, this is bizarre.
Yeah,
I don't know about this.
Am I gonna get stabbed?
Yeah, is this sanctioned by anyone?
Did you watch it?
I didn't. I did the same thing you did. I watched some. I didn't even watch any clips. I just read transcripts of certain parts of it and all that. Because for the same reason, I especially doing this podcast now, I've always followed the news, but I follow it even more now. And sometimes at night, I'm just I got to shut it off. I'm watching a game or I'm watching something else.
It reads like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's a little Game of Thronesy. Yeah, same thing with all the characters and all the stuff. Yeah, it's hard to remember the names and all that.
There's definitely some people who seem like they want to have sex with their family. There's some Lannisters in there,
So we have a very special guest tonight.
We do. Are you going to introduce him? So
I can introduce him.
Yeah.
All right. Should we go ahead and bring him out without further ado?
Yeah. So,
all right. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about our healthcare system and focusing on the current staffing shortages of nurses, doctors, and at-home healthcare providers. And to help us have a better understanding of what is happening, we are bringing on none other than Jason Banks, who just happens to be John's brother.
What?
He is a nursing home administrator who has more than 30 years of experience in healthcare. Jason is seeing the structural atrophy of our healthcare system firsthand. Jason, welcome to the show. If I can add you. There you are. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Hey.
Can you hear us?
I can hear John, but I can't hear Kevin.
Not this again.
Oh, that's so interesting.
That happened once other time.
Say I was a dick in the introduction.
John, could you ask him to log out and come back in?
It's been really bizarre one side of the conversation.
So, Jason, can you log out and then come back in? We think that. So just log out of here and then hit that link again and come back in.
All right.
So,
sorry to our audience if you've been with us before, you know this has happened before. StreamYard's quirky. We use a platform called StreamYard, and I really like it, but I don't know why that happens. He could hear me fine before. So.
But it was the same time. It was you.
And it was me, and it was after the intro, after we brought them back out. So
maybe you need a beard.
I mean, I have a little bit.
Yeah. You have a good chin, though. You have a nice chin, Kevin.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
That's
Can
it.
you hear me now?
That fixed it.
All
Okay,
right.
cool.
I don't understand it, but I'm glad it worked. All right. Well, at least we know now.
Well, anyway, but it was so weird because I could see Kevin's lips moving, and then John would answer. I know it's about AI, but that's all I know.
Well, Jason, thanks for being on the show. We're obviously John's very excited because you're his brother, but I'm also excited because I've heard a lot about you. This is actually the first time we've actually met, but this is a topic that is obviously it's an important topic. It's something that I think everybody can relate to. We've all had some sort of dealings with healthcare, whether it's ourselves or somebody else. So I'm excited to get chatting about it. John, do you have anything to add before we get started?
Well, I guess my first question would be, who do you think is the favorite son, me or you? I think that's what the audience really wants to know.
Oh gosh.
Can I say that my money's on Jason?
So,
Probably.
John has such a fragile ego.
It's true.
It's John. John's his favorite.
Yeah, that's true. So,
Wait,
Jay,
mom or dad?
Mom, obviously mom. So why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about your career and kind of like, what you do and kind of your background and then.
All right. So as of February 1st, I have been a long-term care administrator for 30 years. I can't believe it's been 30 years. So I plan to do it for about another 5, maybe less, and then I'm going to bow out and let the next generation have it. But being burnout has given me a great perspective on things, and I hope I'm able to help and make this podcast a successful broadcast.
All right. Cool. Well, so let's get into it, man. So I was doing some research and just gonna read this to you. So nurses say they aren't experiencing burnout. They say they're experiencing what they call moral injury, which is of understaffing, which is defined as the deep psychological and emotional distress healthcare workers experience when systemic chronic staffing shortages prevent them from providing safe, ethical, and quality care. So Jason, I understand why this is a problem for healthcare workers, but can you kind of go over why this is a problem for overall healthcare and patients?
Yes. And so, everybody focuses just on the nursing shortage part of this, but it's all aspects of healthcare. I mean, in lots of industries, but, COVID just rewrote the script for so many businesses and everything. But with healthcare specifically, we had a lot of older nurses that were going to work about another 10 years, but they didn't have to, they just wanted to. And then with COVID, they saw coworkers dying. They saw, they were almost dying. It was scaring the heck out of them. And I can remember at the height of it, I was at a facility. Fortunately, I was only there for a short time, but and this happened right before I got there. Every nurse and every CNA for an entire shift walked out. They were just like, we do not feel safe, and they just up and left. Yeah, and it was, the nurses dropped their keys on the desk and said, we're out. And we really have not recovered from that, and I don't know that we will. And so what happened is you had a shortage go to a critical shortage because so many of those nurses just left healthcare. I mean, that was it for them. They didn't go back. And then of course we'll get into this, but then now it's the demand. I mean, there's I think there's going to be let's see, I'm trying to remember the exact number. I think 5,000 more nurses in the next year and a half in the state of Alabama, and we need 40,000 more. And so yeah. So yeah, and so
wait, let me get on my calculator and do some math.
Yeah, that's not enough though. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's yeah. And you guys had just, we may go down this rabbit hole later, but AI, I really do feel is going to be a lifesaver in healthcare to an extent. It's going to shore up some of these labor shortages, and then we have nurse practitioners, and their job is mainly clinical thinking. And so, like, how to best take care of the patient, what's the best medication at the levels and titrations and all that type of thing. And AI can do that now. So how long will nurse practitioners still have jobs? Probably not much longer. And so, so I feel like they're going to be kind of some of the first to go. But then there's aspects of AI that are helping. Like a nurse can go in and dictate a bunch of stuff to, in a patient's room, and it automatically loads it to the medical record without them having to type it and all that kind of stuff. And my facility right now, we're actually fixing to pilot a blood pressure machine that takes the blood pressure and other vitals like your temperature and heart rate and oxygen saturation. And as it takes it, it's going to automatically upload it to the medical record. And then if there's anything that's a dangerous level, it will automatically notify the nurse, hey, this guy's oxygen level's low, his heart rate's high, whatever. And so it's just going to improve healthcare from that standpoint. But I think ultimately it's going to affect jobs. But I feel like that's probably another 10 years down the road. So anyway.
Yeah, I do a podcast in the healthcare space, and I've talked to people before, and a lot of them are pretty excited about AI because of the busy work that they're going to be able to ditch. Like like you said, the amount, a doctor just brings in he can record a conversation with a patient, and it goes right up to the to their cloud or whatever. He doesn't have to sit there and type it in. And at least what I've heard is a lot of doctors and nurses are spending so much time on menial tasks, they feel like they're not even able to do what it is that they set out to do when they went to medical school.
Exactly. And then what happens is not just the shortage of your peer-to-peer nurses, but you have social workers, dietary workers, housekeepers. And you think, okay, well, how can a housekeeper make a nursing's job more stressful? Well, when the family comes to visit and the room is dirty, guess who they go complain to? They go complain to the nurse. And that pulls more time of that nurse's already limited resources and time on something that is, shouldn't be a nursing issue. It should be that the housekeeping does their job, but there's not enough housekeepers. There's not enough dietary. So that means the food is cold, or they have to serve it on styrofoam or whatever, just a plethora of issues. And all that stuff lands at the doorstep of the nurse on the floor. And so you've just got that added stress of not just not having enough people to actually do the direct patient care, but all the support services that come with it.
So let me circle back around. So you said so you have 5,000 nurses that are going to be coming into the workforce, and you need 40,000 and that.
Yeah.
But
into 2027.
Okay.
Into 2027 next year.
Okay. And is that a national? I'm assuming national is probably pretty similar.
Yes, it's across the board. Yeah. Every state is in this same situation. There's actually I think a little bubble out in the Midwest there's just a high concentration of RNs. Don't know why, but I've heard that that's like the one area that they don't really have a critical nursing shortage is. I'm not sure where in the Midwest. I don't know if it's Arizona or Colorado or where, but they're like the anomaly. Most everybody is suffering greatly for staff.
So there's like a medical Eden out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm from the Midwest, and I knew a lot of nurses, so I guess it makes sense to me. Yeah.
So
let me ask you this, Jason. What does this mean? Like this exceptional shortage. for the average person, for the listeners, what kind of ramifications will this have to care?
Well, it's having it now. And of course, I'd be very careful, and I wouldn't presume any particular entity, but I'll give a personal example. I was in a pretty bad car wreck about 4 years ago, and they had a nursing shortage was going on then because COVID was in full swing, and so they had a lot of contract nurses. And contract nurses, not all, but a lot of them, they are just there for the money. They they're not going to be there for the fallout if they didn't do something right, if they didn't document something correctly. That's going to fall on the long-term staff that you have. So I had pretty good nurses and great nurses, but I had this one nurse at night that I would not sleep at night because I was concerned that if I started going bad, that I would die because she wouldn't pick up on it. And so I made sure to stay awake so I could feel myself going bad and I could hit the call out and yell out. So, to draw attention to it.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So, yeah. And so that was when the nursing shortage wasn't as bad as it is now. And so I do feel there are probably people dying, that wouldn't have died if they had adequate staffing. But that's for the attorneys and all the wrongful death cases to decide. I'll prove all that. But just in my building, we will see, when we have a bad staffing day, we will see an increase in falls and, complaints about response time. It's, it's so easy. It's so easy to understand. It's just hard to fix. It's just a direct correlation. You got less bodies, you're going to have more problems with and worse patient outcomes and worse patient care. And so I just feel that's going to get worse. So that to kind of circle back to your question, Kevin, where I see it going, I think it's going to get really bad. And then hopefully with the help of AI, I'm not I don't drink the Kool-Aid of Elon Musk. I think he's a little too optimistic about the future of the progression, but I think it will happen. But, he's talking about in, a year, robots will be doing surgeries. I don't think it'll happen that fast, but I do feel it will happen. I do feel that, the dexterity is already getting there for, for them to provide, baths for patients and feed patients and all that kind of stuff. And so it's coming, but I think there's going to be this 3 to 5 year awful period where we just don't have enough people to take care of people, and we don't have enough technology to meet that, help offset
fill the gap.
That demand.
Yeah.
Thank you, fill the gap.
So I guess for the next 5 years, then don't get sick. That's
stay healthy, people. Wrap yourself in bubble wrap. Yep.
Everybody drive a big old truck. So if you get hit, you won't get hurt. So then it's like so it sounds like it's kind of two-sided. So there's a shortage because of just the number of people coming in, and so medical staff, doctors, nurses, home providers are all overtaxed, which sounds like is dangerous. And on top of that, then you also have a system because of that shortage. You have like contract nurses or traveling nurses who go into a place, and we're definitely not attacking contract nurses. I'm sure the majority of them are good people, but you don't know what you're going to get. Or if you get somebody with the wrong motivation, you could also have a fall in healthcare or decline in healthcare on that side of it too. Is that correct?
Yes, on the outcomes, and I've seen it. I've seen it personally. So there was a point I was going to make, and I can't remember, John. You just said something right before we started. Oh well, yeah. I'm 53, so you just got grace on that. So
I think it was about me being the best son, the favorite son,
favorite son. Right?
Yeah, I think everyone got that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know what it was. Gosh. This has always been important. So if anybody that's listening to this now or in the future, one of the most important things you can do for yourself personally and for your family is if you're in the hospital or any kind of healthcare setting, have an advocate. Have somebody there. So when I had my wreck, Susan, my wife, she was my advocate. She was there to be there when, to talk to the doctors. And, if she felt like it'd been too long since I'd had pain medicine, she would go find the nurse and say, hey, he's starting to hurt. And without an advocate, without somebody there with these shortages, the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing. You're going to get better care by having an advocate. And it's sad to say, but if 10 patients on the hall, 2 of them have advocates, they're going to probably get 50% of the nurse's time because, they're going to make sure to keep those families happy because, your patients with an advocate, they're going to be, recovering from a stroke or a heart attack or something. They're going to be out of it most of the time anyway. And they're not going to realize they're not getting the care that they do need.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in the hospital about almost a year ago with some broken ribs and a hole in my lung, and I will say the care was excellent. I'm in Colorado. The care was excellent, but there were times when, people were supposed to bring me something, or something was supposed to, whatever it was, that I would have to wait, and they'd come in, they'd be like, yeah, sorry, it's gotten busy and we're short, and like all that. It was definitely a talking point for the nurses that they just. When it got busy, it was really hard to keep up. When it was slow, it was no big deal. If everybody was sleeping, or if maybe the floor was a little light or whatever, it was fine. But as soon as it was busy and crowded, and they got new patients in, I mean, they were pushed to the max, no doubt.
Yeah. And I don't want to get off on this tangent because I might lose the thread here, but one of the issues I see with the nurses we have, especially the younger nurses, I'm going to sound like an old Gen Xer here, the cell phones, they are. They're watching Netflix while they're doing med pass, where that's going to increase your med errors. We had a situation the other day where a family member was standing at the desk. The nurse was on her phone, FaceTiming or whatever she was doing. And the family member stood there for like a minute and a half before she noticed her. And then when she needed something off the med cart, a hearing aid battery for her mother, and then we keep those on the med cart, she took the phone with her and continued to do whatever it was she was doing. So,
Wow.
Then the family, of course, went to complain to me, and that took my time and those kind of things. So that was something that was just a poor customer service outcome. But that is happening more and more. And we actually just implemented this week as a company. We have 5 facilities, a no cell phone, no AI glasses. I'm not sure what that's about. Obviously, something happened somewhere with AI glasses. But there's like, we're going to start actually writing people up and terminating them for, because we do feel like it is affecting the outcome of patient care, and it's definitely affecting customer service. So
and here you are on a shortage, and now you have to start firing people for just
exactly
not being smart, not doing their job well.
And Kevin, that's a good point. We have, and I'm guilty of this too, is because you've got the good nurses, and then you got your mediocre nurses. And so when your mediocre nurses start doing things that are, on the line of being dangerous, in the old days, you just fire them, as
Right.
a safety thing before something really bad happened. Now
Sure.
You got to keep them on, because you fire them. Then you just took your good nurses who are already strung out, and you just removed one more nurse from the equation. Better have a mediocre nurse than no nurse at all. And
Wow.
it's a tough spot to be in.
This is a depressing conversation.
It's a real conversation, though, and it's something people need to know about.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it is definitely a nonpartisan, everybody's problem, because we're all aging and we all need healthcare, and we all need good healthcare, right? I am lucky because I live in California, and I'm my partner has insurance, and I'm on her insurance, and I'm in the UCLA health system, and it is a very good health system. It is one of the largest in the country, and it is run very well. Or I think it's one of the largest, like, independent. I know there's like some companies, I think HAC or something like that, that's like 219 hospitals, or so it's not that, but it is like, and any time I've ever gone in there, they are really dialed in. They use technology to really streamline everything, and and so far, but I'm sure they're experiencing shortages as well.
I'm sure,
but now I'll say other hospitals in LA, not so great. So and not so great because of the shortages they are experiencing. So I'm curious. Well, actually, do you know this, Jason? And I think this kind of goes back to what you were talking about at the start. That if this is true, that there's all of this moral injury has caused over 1 million RNs to leave and still have their license, but basically just leave the industry completely. Is that kind of what you're talking about with the COVID stuff, where it's like basically just people are so overwhelmed, they're just bugging out?
Oh, absolutely. And and it's just this terrible vicious cycle, because you're losing good nurses, which then the nurses that are left behind is just that much harder for them. It's just that much more pressing, because like I said, you fire the mediocre nurse, or the mediocre nurse just quits because she can't she can't take it anymore. Then your good ones left behind are just they're just burn out, and it's it is the one thing that still stresses me in my job is I've got good nurses. I'm close to them. They're like family, some of them, and it keeps me up at night sometimes. Just worrying about them. Well, I mean, they'll always have a job, for the next 10 years, maybe longer, but this is going to be a hard job and it's going to be a taxing job. And if you're a good nurse, you're going to have to cut corners sometimes to make it. So you're going to have to triage what care you provide and what care you don't. So nobody's going to die on your watch, but is a resident going to go 30 minutes longer without their pain meds because you just can't get to them because you're dealing with the other people.
Right.
And we've in long-term care, and I'm sure the hospitals are probably doing something similar, is we're trying to come up with ways besides just AI to take things off of the nurses. So like one of the big things in long-term care we're doing is we have something called medication assistant certifications. And so these people are between like a nursing assistant and a nurse, so they can pass out everything but narcotics and insulin. So they get, they can do your heart medications, your blood pressure pills, all that kind of stuff. And so in our building right now, I can tell you our average patient takes 9 medications a day, 9 different meds. And some of those meds they might get 4 times a day. So one resident might get 40 to 50 pills in one day. So you can imagine,
wow,
if you've got in our staffing, so our nurses take care of about 25 patients a piece on their shift. So that's 200 pills in a shift that you might be passing out. And so the Macs take the bulk of that off of them so they can do things like the critical thinking stuff. So like if they got to do something with an IV or, change a catheter tube or, if there's an incident like a resident falls, there's a whole bunch of paperwork that has to be done with that, contacting the doctor and the family and all this stuff and doing neuro checks. They have that time to do that, and the MAC takes those just a pill pushing off of them. And so we're kind of trying to come up with things like that. And I won't keep throwing it. Go ahead, John.
Well, is that also, because I know you're talking about, because you're in long-term healthcare, right? Is that also the same thing that's in hospitals and emergency? Like are hospitals also adapting these types of things?
Yes, absolutely. They can't use MACs and MACs, medications. We call them MACs. They can't use MACs because that is a specific thing for long-term care. That was a solution there because we were losing LPNs left and right. But the hospital, they're having their own versions of that. I mean, they're thinking, ways of outside the box. People, anybody can answer a call out. You may not be able to do what that patient needs, but I answer call outs in my building, and 9 times out of 10, they just want a cup of water, their air conditioner turned on or off, their blinds open. It's something anybody can do. It's not, hey, I need a pain pill or I need to go to the bathroom. It's something anybody can do. So I don't know if the hospital is utilizing those kind of things, but that's another thing we're starting to do. And I can see hospitals doing that because it's just such a simple, it's such a simple thing to do. But again, that's one more thing that nurse doesn't have to do, so she can focus on the things that only she can do.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say, do you feel like is the issue just nurse? Is it just burnout overall? Is it? I'm sure it's more nuanced than that, but you're in long-term care. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So is it partially that the nurses who are out there prefer a different line of work, or is it just sort of like, are there certain parts of the nursing industry that are doing better than others?
No, it's pretty much across the board. And in my role, in my leadership role, I do have meetings sometimes with people in hospitals, with the universities. I'm on, sound like I'm gloating now, but I'm on an advisory committee for Southern Union, which is a community college here in town, and I'm on the advisory board for Auburn University. And what that means is once a year they feed me lunch. So
Name dropper.
So I love to eat. Yeah, exactly. So, but I don't get to go to Alabama. But all it is they just feed us lunch. But they pull us in with instructors and say, "What do you need?" And of course, and then we get into the weeds and get into specific things for our industry. But in those meetings, there's hospital representatives, hospice, home health, and we're all in there together, and we're all saying the same thing. It's like we need nurses, we need more, and the universities are trying, and the community colleges, they're trying, but and we'll probably touch on this in a minute, but if you're an instructor at a university, you're going to make about 2/3 at best of what somebody in the private sector, is going to make working at the hospital. And so, do you want to teach other students and make 60,000 a year, or go to the hospital and make 100,000 a year? And most people are going to choose the 100,000. So, and then again, you get to, you don't want just anybody teaching these new nurses. And so, what happens when you get mediocre teachers? You're going to get mediocre students.
And
then it goes from there. I
feel like there's a really good opportunity for me to become a teacher.
Or a nurse.
Yeah.
If you get a nurse.
Yeah, I'm just going to teach nursing. So it sounds like that's an easier gig. So
you think you're good? You're good on that?
No, but I'm saying I could do it. I mean, I'm saying if we're going to get bad nurses, I could totally do that. I could make a lot of bad nurses.
Okay.
So yeah.
But the problem, John, is that you actually have to know the material you're teaching, and so
Chat GPT.
Okay then. So there's our answer. We can end the show right here, John.
There you go. We solved it. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So on this topic. So I don't know if you know if this is true or not, but in this research in 2024 alone, nursing schools were forced to turn away over 80,000 qualified applicants because they lacked the faculty and space to train them. So is that kind of what you're saying? So it's just basically because you have so many people who are leaving this industry or not leaving, they're leaving teaching because being a nurse is like being a nurse in a hospital or a healthcare, like being in healthcare is just such a better job. That is crazy, man. So,
and then on the education piece of it, you also have to have part of being a nurse. You have to go to clinical sites. You cannot do everything at the university. The Board of Nursing in Alabama, and I'm sure most, if not all, you've got to have that real world clinical experience. So you go out in the field. So in my facility, we partner a lot with Auburn and Southern Union. And so they send a lot of their students to us to work with our nurses. Well, we've got 14 primary nurses, in my full-time shift rotation. And this semester between Southern Union and Auburn, we've got about 40 nursing students that we're helping. So imagine that. So I just said we've got 14 staff members that have got 40 students. So imagine you're that nurse. You've got 2 to 3 students that you're mentoring, not every day, but once or twice a week, for a whole semester. So, that takes a lot of time and energy. And fortunately, most of our nurses are on board with that, and they don't mind doing that. But Southern Union is trying to grow their program, and everybody's maxed out on these clinical sites. So we're at 27. What we did was we used to do it all during the day. So you'd have all your nursing students come and do their clinicals during the day. Well, with so many students coming in, we got smart, and we've got them coming in on our second shift. We have 3 shifts, so we got them coming in on our second shift and our third shift to kind of spread them out and not just overload that first shift. But Southern Union, they're trying to open up a whole nother nursing wing to bring in another 50, 60 students. Well, there's another 50, 60 students that are going to need a clinical site, and we're maxed out. So, where do they go to do their clinicals? Even if the school can get them in and have instructors to instruct them, then where are they going to do their clinicals at? And that's another challenge that we're facing.
The AI thing is interesting because it definitely sort of makes you think, okay, if you can convince people, hey, nursing's a great job, it's a great skill, it's and you're not going to have to do all this paperwork, and you're not going to have to do all this busy work, and you've got this great technology that can manage the meds and all this stuff. Do you think that will help encourage people to move toward nursing if maybe they weren't considering it at first?
I don't think the issue is, I think you have tons of people that want to be a nurse. It's just there's limited space for them, and so it's a highly competitive thing to get into, even though there's a high demand because of that bottleneck, that pipeline bottleneck in the middle there.
Right.
There's just not classroom size enough to bring them on board. I don't think it's a lack of desire. I don't think it. I mean, it's a very sought out career right now. I mean, people want to get into it. It's just supply and demand. And in this, in this case, the demand to be a nurse is great, but this, the supply of schools that can provide that space is limited. And and it's and that's the kind of thing that doesn't happen fast. And I won't get political here, but well, I am going to get political. But then like that Trump talks about bringing back industry to America. Well, these plants he's talking about building, they take billions of dollars in 10 years. The way he talks, it makes it sound like, oh, well, next month we'll have this up and moving. Well, that's the same thing with this problem. There are people working hard. There are steps being taken, but to build that infrastructure and get that pipeline flowing takes a lot of manpower and money and time. You can't just do it overnight. And so that's where we're at. So things are being done, but it just takes time.
Can we lure some of the nurses who left back?
I don't think so. I think they're done. I think they had enough money because it's a good career.
Sure.
And I think they got away and they took other careers, and it's like, okay, I'm only making half of what I'm making, but now I'm 57 years old and I get home at 4:00 in the afternoon and I can go sit on my back porch and I don't have to work a double, and I don't have to, I'm working, I'm getting ready to go home. It's like, oh, your replacement called out tonight, so you're gonna have to work a whole nother shift now. And so who wants to do that? Well, if you don't have to, and that's the problem. I don't think most of them are coming back.
Yeah.
Actually, I know they're not, because we have tried to get them to come back. That's one of the things we did, and I know that the hospitals did it, and everybody else too. Is we brushed off the old files, the old payrolls, reached back out to all those nurses and nursing assistants, because we got a shortage of those too. And no response, or go to hell. No way in hell I'm coming back. But no, it's
So could you for our audience just kind of explain what the difference between a CNA is, an LPN, and an RN? Because you're throwing out those. I mean, Kevin knows, but yeah.
So,
no. Could you?
I don't know. I just see I don't know what they mean. I just no. So a CNA.
What am I, a doctor? I'm an administrator.
Yeah. Hey, healthcare, we are the worst at abbreviations. So a CNA, certified nursing assistant, that is your entry level position. Those are the folks that do the grunt work. They take people to the bathroom, they clean people up, they feed them, they bathe them. It's that bedside patient care. That's what the CNAs do. And then the MAX, which I mentioned, that's like the next tier, the medication assistant certification. Those are the people that can pass out those meds and do a few other things, but they can't do a lot of the nursing functions, and particularly insulin and narcotics. And the reason insulin that I mentioned earlier is so important is because if you got a brittle diabetic and you just make a small mistake and don't have enough training, you can kill somebody. And the MAC program is like an 8 to 10 week program. So it's a bare bones program where the next step, an LPN, a licensed practical nurse, they have 18 months of schooling, so 3 semesters. And so they've got that level. And so an LPN, a licensed practical nurse, can do most of what a registered nurse can do, with the exception of like IVs and a few other evasive procedure type things like that. And so then for the LPN, we have the RNs, and that's like a 5-semester course usually. And then and that's kind of where we cap out. But then with your RN, you have your associate's degree, and then you have your bachelor's degree, which is a 4-year nursing degree. And so it's a little bit, they get a little bit higher. And then you have your nurse anesthetist and your nurse practitioner, which is like your master's in nursing. And then the only PhDs are those that teach.
Okay. So not only as a teacher will you make less money, you have to get a lot more school to be a teacher.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if you can do it with an associate or if you have to have a bachelor's. I think you have to have actually I can answer that question, because if you have to have your bachelor's for a junior college or a community college, you have to have your master's or your PhD for a 4-year university.
Okay.
Because I have my master's and I can only be an adjunct at the university, but I could be a full-time instructor at the community college.
Oh,
is there a way to kind of maybe make a systemic change where you can give more money to these teachers? I mean, is there a way we can figure out a way to do that? Or is it just the universities are all at their own, their own judgment on what they want to pay somebody?
Yes and yes. They can always give. I mean, if you look at what students are paying now, it's $125,000 for 4 years at Auburn. If they just gave them, if they just gave them one student's tuition for 4 years, it would pay for one salary kind of thing,
right?
For an increase. But it again, it's one of those slow things. But I have talked to some of the Southern Union instructors, and like the dean of the nursing program, and she has got that in place to increase the salaries. But there's and I don't know how this part works in the details, but you've got a board and checks and balances, so you can't just go and increase the instructor salaries by $20,000 a year. There's a red tape bureaucracy process, but they are doing that. And Central Alabama Community College, I talked to their dean recently, and they had just gotten approval and got it in place to do some type of large raise for their instructors, and she was feeling pretty oppostic about that. But again,
just tell all those bureaucrats that are getting older, hey, you want to live or you want to die? Let's move this along. Move this along.
Well, the good thing is it takes so long to get the paperwork done. You get to live longer. So it's like you can't die yet. We haven't filled out form 479. You can't, you can't die on us yet. So
you can't die yet. You gotta stick around for a little longer.
So another, I guess, is another part of this. So we have the schools, right, not paying as much. Is part of it also that when, and I don't know exactly when this happened, but I know just it's kind of like healthcare has become more and more of a business and less about helping people. I mean, they help people, but it's definitely looked at more as a business than I think it was probably 40 years ago. So is that also part of it, this driving it, where it's like, this is a business that has to compete for, it's capitalism, it's competing for resources. So, they're going out and the hospitals are outbidding each other to get the best nurses. And so now here we are, 40 years, now here we are in this moment where nurses, I think it was nurses make on average about $97,000 a year, and that's a national average. And I think teachers make around $60,000 a year or 55, or so. Is that also part of the problem?
So let me make sure I understand you. So are you saying part of the problem? I don't quite understand. Like, what is part of the problem then?
Is part of the problem that the healthcare system has become a business, which it's always been a business, but now it has definitely become it's more of a business now than it was 40 years ago, right? You have big buyouts, you have board, it's treated more, healthcare is treated more like a business now than it was 40 years ago. So is that part of the problem, in that it is a capitalist system? And I'm not anti-capitalism, so I'm not trying to trick you to like make you a socialist, but I'm just saying is like treating healthcare like we treat buying a car. Doing it that way, is that part of the problem? And then it's pushing up these wages and making it so that making it harder for people to teach and easier for them to leave and go to that business. Does that make sense?
And so let me specifically answer your question and kind of go to a broader issue with healthcare as a business. But yeah, so you do have this kind of dog eat dog world where I call them hired guns personally. But I'm sitting there trying to find a nurse that's got compassion, wants to take care of a patient. And so all the young people know you have to text them. You don't call them, you don't email them. So I text, get their number from their application, and I say, hey, I've got this position open. Would you be interested? Not good morning, how you doing? Yes, I'm interested. They just fire back, what's the pay? How much will I make? And it's very disheartening because that's not what I got into healthcare. That's not what a lot of your older nurses got into healthcare to do. They got in because they wanted to increase the quality of life for their patients and have better outcomes for their patients. And if the first question that you ask is how much can you pay? Because I'm out to the highest bidder. I may not be a great nurse, but I know you need nurses desperately. Everybody does. And so, if you offer me $45 an hour and you offer me $47, I'm going to go work at the place that offers me $47.
Right.
And then if I'm there for 2 months and somebody offers me $50, I'm going to come to you and say, hey, they're offering me 50. Will you give me 50 to stay, or I'm going to leave and go work for them? And we have a lot of that. And I've gotten where when people ask what the pay is, at one time I actually would just give them the pay, and I know what they were doing. They were going to their current employer and holding their phone up and saying, hey, this guy's going to offer me $5 more an hour, match it, or I'm going to go work for him. And so I would never hear from them again because their employer, they were basically had a gun to their head that they had to do this raise. Well, then guess what? You've got to cut your, you've got to figure out a way, you've got a budget. We've got a bigger budget than your household, but at the end of the day, it's just the same thing. Just like you have to budget your house. You give your kids $100 more a week allowance. You got to cut back on groceries. You got to turn the lights off at night. You have to do something to offset
Right.
that. And that's what and that's what we have to do too.
$100 a week, is that the going rate for allowance, Jason?
So, not in my house.
Isn't to some degree though that understandable, especially considering the economy that we're in, considering how expensive everything is. I mean, in a way, like that's it, you're using the leverage that you have. I know it seems kind of shitty because you should want to help people, and maybe they still do, but it's like things are expensive. I've got student loans. This extra $5 an hour is going to make a big difference for me.
So our problem, so hospitals to a lesser extent, but even hospitals, the rates we're paying is not sustainable. You cannot have, like our hospital system here. I used to work for them, so I kind of, I can give you almost the exact number. They employ between about 850 and 900 RNs. So I'm not going to do the math here, but but if you pay each nurse, each of those 850 RNs another $5,000 a year, that's a lot of money. So somebody that's faster at math, and so you do that.
It's not going to be John or I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
So
is it 85 million?
So let's say it's 5 million more a year. Well, our hospital in town, because I used to work for them, I would see the annual budget. We cleared about 10 to 12 million a year. So if you're paying out 5 million more in salaries just to your nurses, that's not, you're going to give raises to everybody else too. You're almost eating up all your profit with salaries. Well, what happens when your $4 million MRI machine goes out? How are you going to get a new one? What happens when you've got to expand to meet the patient care needs in your area? So there's a finite amount of resources, and you can only stretch that so far. And so but the problem we have with nurses is there's such a shortage. I mean, it's like we're all we're just batting around the same amount of nurses to fill a gap here and those kind of things. So this nurse will go over here for a contract. And when that contract's running out, she'll come back and work for me for a higher amount for 13 weeks, and then it's just we're just paying more and more and not getting better quality of care because nobody's staying stationary.
So here's a question from someone in our audience. It's also so it's not just the teachers, right? Question mark. It's also the clinical work where nurses have to continue training them. How will the bottleneck get worked out over time?
So that is, that's in the works right now. But it's just going to be that slow process because you've got an instructor problem, you've got teaching space problem, you've got a clinical site problem, and all those different pieces. And so, just real quick, so your instructor problem, you're going to have to pay them more. But to me, that one's kind of the easy piece because even if you can't afford it right now, if you increase your enrollment, that's a lot more tuition money coming in. So therefore you can take a big chunk of that tuition money and put it toward those new instructor salaries. So I think that one's kind of the easy part of this. The harder part is okay, so if you take on 500 more students, you got to have a teaching space for that. So you got to build a new building or you got a retro building, whatever. But that costs millions and millions of dollars plus the construction time, all that kind of thing. So once you have that part done, now it's the clinical sites. And that's where I think the hardest part of this is the training. I think that middle piece is going to be the slowest part of this because you got to build it and you got to get the infrastructure going and all that kind of stuff and put the programs in place. And then on the back end, though, with the clinical sites and that continued education, that continued training is, that's a challenge. But like I said, when we went from doing everybody on one shift, and as we kept getting more, we stretched out to 3 shifts. Well, we could do weekends. We could try to make it where we alternated semesters with the schools. Like, all right, this semester you guys come to us, this semester you guys come to us, and that way we can kind of spread out those students, and we don't overwhelm the peer-to-peer training that's going on in the clinical setting. And so there's lots of different pilots and troubleshooting, but there's no magic bullet. There's just not one way to fix all the problems. And
thank you for the question, person we definitely do not know.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Person who's not related to anybody on this podcast.
It's a family affair. I have a quick question because it's not quick at all, actually. I can hear people saying now, like, as you're talking about this, right? Healthcare is so expensive. My insurance is ridiculous. I go to I pay all this money for insurance, then I have to go to the doctor. I end up in the hospital, and I'm still paying a bunch of money on top of that. Do you find that the average person doesn't want to hear about the financial woes of a hospital or of a medical institution? I mean, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I can give a personal recent local example. So our local hospital, they wanted to they fell short because they would get they were doing all these salaries increases, and they needed money. They were like out of money, and so they needed money to continue going. And so they reached out to the community and basically said, they went to the city and the county and asked both of them for, I don't know, a couple of $1 million each, out of the taxpayer coffers to basically bail the hospital out. And they did do it, but the community backlash was, basically it's cutting your nose off to spite your face. They're like, we shouldn't be giving this money to the hospital if they can't, if they're not good stewards of their money and their operations, then, they should fail. They should close. Let somebody else come in here. Well, that's not going to end well for anybody. And it's, I had a family that was complaining the other day about something. It's something stupid. I didn't tell her it was stupid, but it was stupid. But but I ended up saying to her, and I wasn't blunt about it, but I said, we're all in this together.
Right.
It's like, if you're hateful to my staff and you run them off, well, who's going to take care of your mom? It's like, be nice to the staff. Even, we're human. Yeah, they're going to have a bad day. They might not do something they should have done. Should have known to do. But, we're taking care of your mom 98% of the time. Don't beat the staff up over that 2% time that they screwed up and didn't do what they want to do. Have some grace, show some mercy. And this is kind of getting a little off topic, but when COVID was at the height, I went to Cookout. It's a little burger joint, and it's a chain, so you may have heard of it. But I was there, and it took an hour to get my hamburger because this was during the height, and this woman was just tearing this poor girl up behind the counter. I mean, she was doing everything but cussing her out. And I stepped in. I said, ma'am, I said, her coworkers are the ones that didn't show up this morning. I said, she did. I said, but if she has to keep dealing with people like you, she's not going to be here tomorrow. And then who's going to take your order? And that's part of that healthcare. You got these nurses burning out, and then you got these families, and you got these lawsuits, and it's just all this pressure. And the definition of burnout is high expectations and low control. And that's what we're in right now. It's like we have this expectation to deliver excellent care, and when we don't, we get sued. We get regulatory agencies breathing down our neck. We get all these things happening. And so what happens when you do all that and 5 more good nurses walk out the door? Well, now what's going to happen?
Right.
You got nobody take your hamburger order. So anyway,
I'm confused, but I think I'm following you.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah.
So nurses or hamburgers. Got it.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
So what about private equity? Like what is private equity doing to the healthcare system?
Whew, man. Okay. So there's a group of gentlemen in the state of Alabama, but this is happening all over the country. They're part of a real estate investment group, and they are going into nursing facilities, and you guys have probably seen some of the things where this has happened in other industries, like the Red Lobster chain and those kind of things. But they go in, they get these companies that are in financial trouble. They make the companies take out the loan. Why they agree to this, I do not understand this part. But so the nursing home takes out the money for these guys to buy it. And so you would think, since these guys are buying it, that they would be on the hook to pay that debt back, but it still falls on the company. And again, I don't understand the whole shell game and how that works, but essentially there's very low risk for these real estate investment companies. So then what they do is they go in and they strip all the assets they can. So they cut salaries down, so you lose good staffing. So that's going to affect the quality of care of your, of your residents. And they don't care that if you're working short. They will, like the bare bones minimum in Alabama is you can have one nurse for 50 patients. That is not realistic, but that's kind of like the threshold. Like you cannot legally stay open and have more than a nurse taking care of 50 patients. These guys will bump that. If it's one nurse taking care of 48 patients, they're fine with that, even though it's morally and ethically unsafe. But it's legally, it meets the legal requirement. So they do that, and then they, if let's say the nursing home has a big giant parking lot. Well, they may parcel that off and sell it to the city so they can build something else there. And then they put that money in their pocket. Then they charge management fees every month because they're doing all these great things to help the building stay in business. And they get this big management fee on top of that. And all they're doing is they're just sucking the marrow out of that facility. And then they step back and the company has to file bankruptcy and that nursing home closes, or that Red Lobster closes. And it happened to a huge hospital chain. I think it was in Maryland. They did it there. And I think that's where it got, there's some things going on in Congress right now to try to pass some bills to make some of the stuff they're doing illegal, because they're having deaths because of these poor staffing numbers and stuff like that. And so it's just an awful thing. And in the state of Alabama, these two guys, they are buying up every home that they can. And at this point, I think they've acquired about 40 of our 230 nursing homes. And those nursing homes they're going to shut down. And then where are all those residents going to go? Because our census, that's another thing. We're busting at the seams on census because, our populations are growing. We got so many more, our baby boomers are aging out and needing nursing home care, and there's not enough beds for all of them. So
sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. I mean, I know a hospital here where I live changed names recently, or was bought out recently. There's different clinics around and stuff like that, and you'll see different names, different signs all the time, and so you can see that happening. So Jason, as we wrap up here, what needs to happen to shift this? I mean, you mentioned that we're going to have 4 to 5 years of bad, in your opinion, and then hopefully the teaching can catch up and all that. Is there anything else that we can do in the short term to try to improve our situation other than not get sick?
Yeah,
that's really my best advice. Google's working. Yeah, Google's working on the mortality.
That's true.
Drugs. So yeah, they're spending $500 million a year in research and development on it. And so,
yeah.
But when you hear that, you think, oh, one day we'll all live forever. Nope, only the rich will live forever.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and it's not like you get a shot and you live your life. You have to get a booster every year, and I bet you those shots are going to be $5 million a pop because they're putting all this money into it now. But
I don't want to live it forever anyway, Jason. I really don't.
So again, there's no one answer. I think you will find a lot of families, going home to take care of loved ones until robots can do it, or whatever that the future looks like. And then I don't want to get too morbid, but I'm a big proponent of euthanasia. And for anybody that's not really familiar with that, it's basically the right to die. And right now on our planet, that is not a choice we get to make a lot of times. So if you get a terminal cancer diagnosis and you got 6 months to live, you can't say, well, I want to spend this week with my family, and then I want to be euthanized. I want to be taken out. I just want to go peacefully, give me some drugs. I just go to sleep and never wake up. Instead, we're going to dump, all these time and resources into this person that's, we might give them another 6 months to live. They're going to be sick and feel like shit the whole time that they're going through the chemo trench or the radiation, whatever they're doing. And at the end of the day, they're still going to die. And it's going to be a much more painful death, and it's a death without dignity. And that's a real sore point, man. Of course, your adversaries of that are saying, it's going to become a convenient way to kill people off to help the healthcare system. But that, you can put legal safeguards in place to prevent most of that. But at the end of the day, I really feel like, that's not a solution, but that's part of a solution, is for people to have the right not to be stuck in a broken healthcare system and be suffering when they could just choose to go ahead and bow on out.
Right.
And then, the AI component, just the community component, families pulling together and stuff. Nursing homes started by church groups because they saw a need in the community. All these elderly needed people to go. It wasn't a business model. It was a service of the heart. And so the first nursing homes, they were called almshouses or something like that. And so it was done by the churches actually. And so, you got all these, especially, I'm from the South. I mean, my God, you could throw a rock and hit two churches.
I think that's illegal.
All,
yeah.
So only if you get caught. But all these churches, and they're wanting to do all this good. Well, boom, there you go. Adopt all the kids that need to adopt, and then help the healthcare system out. You got
adopt the old people too.
Yeah, you got all this tax-free money. Instead of building another mega church, shoot it to your local hospital to help them out.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So.
What about so can we call our congressman and senator? I mean, so if I was to do that, if I was like, you know what, I'm going to get on the phone today and I'm going to call my senator, like what would be the thing that what kind of legislation would I want to get written?
Yeah. Well, we are already doing that. Our industries, all the healthcare industries, we are doing that. And I have met a lot of the representatives and senators through the Alabama Nursing Home Association. I'm a member of that. And so sometimes we go to things and get to meet those guys. And they are on board. And that's where you get back to, it's just a long process. You've got one of our huge things in our state is physicians. You talk about the healthcare being a business. A nurse that's very dear to me about 15 years ago, she said, healthcare has become a business and it's the worst thing that's ever going to happen to us. And it's happening now. And she was so right. And so our insurances, we have a monopoly in our state. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, they pretty much are the insurance in our state. And they have a monopoly. They won't say they have a monopoly, but they do. And they pay our doctors less than the state of Georgia. And so we have, we border Georgia, we're right there together like that. So, any county within 50 miles of the Georgia state line, those doctors are going to go to Georgia where they can make 25-30% more because the insurance pays more there. And so that is one thing that our legislation is working with, because our hospitals have gone to them and said, y'all got to fix this. And so they're working on that. They're working on passing legislation to get doctors to stay and back to Alabama to kind of balance that out. And again, who knows what AI will bring with all that. But yeah, the healthcare as a business is as bad business for the patient in all the cases. So.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's not benefiting the people who need the help and who need the care. Well, thank you, Jason. I mean, it's a tough topic, but I think it's important. Like I said, I think people need to know this, and I think that it's something that we don't necessarily think about or really even know unless you have, some sort of either connection to the healthcare world or you have to get care. Then you kind of figure this out. But thank you very much for being here and being on the show. Thank you for all that you do and for sticking it out and trying to help people and a little bit longer. Yeah, that's. I think everybody would appreciate that very much. And before we go, I wanted to just mention next week we will be joined by economist Dan Altman to discuss the systemic dismantling of worker power. We're going to dive into another light topic. We're going to dive into why millions of people are being left behind by a skills effect that rewards the few and punishes the rest, and why the erosion of your bargaining power was a deliberate shift toward corporate consolidation. If you feel like the ladder of opportunity has been pulled up behind the billionaire class, you should hear this one, because Dan's going to help us understand how that all works. Join us next Wednesday right here on YouTube. Jason, John, gentlemen, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you both.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great night, Kevin.